All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and boys of all ages. It's about time for a comeback because I thought, why the hell not? And because of the fact that I actually know how to balance this fucking what if now. Because of the fact that the first one I did was too utterly busted. Because I can just summon Shazam and he'd fuck everyone up. So yeah, this is the return of Anubis. And before you say anything, no, this nigga is not God. And no, he cannot summon people from Marvel, like I said in the original one. I didn't think the original one would actually be so broken if I said, hey, let's get people from fucking Marvel into this. But no, Marvel would actually shit stomp fucking My Hero in some ways. Because you got people like Brainiac, Shazam, Superman, Batman. I said Marvel. That's DC, you fucking idiot. But you know what I mean. Marvel, I don't know, because Marvel has a whole bunch of people. So, yeah, let's start this. So, Deku is born in Egypt. Yes, I know, funny, right? And to mm, random people, I'd say he's a demigod, honestly. But yeah, that whole thing happens, and he's raised in the sands. He grows up in the sands, so he learns more about his. He doesn't learn about his history. It kind of like hits him full force at like the age of 10, because he lives normal life. He's getting water and shit, and I'd say in his sleep, Anubis basically popped up in his dream. Was like, "Yo, my boy," and Deku was like, "The fuck are you?" He was like, "Hey, I'm Anubis, overlooker of the damned, protector of fucking hell or whatever the hell like they call it." Because here's the thing, I love the culture, but I never really like looked into the lore of it because there's a whole bunch of shit going on in that. It's like fucking Greek mythology. But hmm, she says, "Well, I'm technically your dad, but we're not gonna talk about that." I mean, when Deku says, "The fuck you mean we're not gonna talk about that?" Of course we gotta talk about that. And he's like, "Well, it happened obviously 10 years and 9 months ago, and basically I was kind of feeling myself that day, and I came up to talk with the humans. I mean, I came actually, yeah, he would be come up. So I come up, talk to the humans a bit, and I met your mother. She was a very nice woman, very calming, lovely, and that whole thing happened, and you were conceived, and Deko's like, okay, but why are you here? And Noah says, so, your powers are coming in. Deku says, my fucking and uh, his eyes start going green. He start getting the Egyptian wardrobe on him, and the gold, all that shit, the gold and shit, and yeah. Give me a second, cause my phone was just going off the chain. Yo, I am back. So yeah, basically he gets all that good shit, the gold and shit, and he wears the same garb of his dad, but his dad, is a jackal folk. You know what jackal folk is? Look it up. And that's what all of the basically Egyptian guys look like. So hmm. So he wears that, the whole garb and everything. And let's say, hmm, how about this? He, gets the powers and shit. He's like, what the hell is this? And Nova says, okay, so here's the thing. You can control the damned, but I'm not letting you control all of the damned. You get like you can make them look more human than me, though. That's the thing. Except for the fact they have green eyes. So I suggest this. You can control the downs, but not as strong as me. But you can control a certain amount of them. Let's say because of how you are, about one at a time. Later on, I'll upgrade it to two, then three. Then you can get more. He was like, and what? And Deku was like, okay, so what do I do with the damned? Nubis says, that's the thing. You're able to control. When I say you're gonna be able to control the damned, I mean you can control. like you can control them. Basically, you make them more look more human. And what else will you do? And you got simple things, like extra things. Well, you got green fire because that's the thing. And no, Brayden, not fucking fell fire. We're never doing. You're never using that shit again. But green fire, and basically shit like that. You got no, you don't got chains. Fuck it. He's basically tells him his whole thing, and there goes like, okay, and what do I do with these? He says, well, every person has a power, you see, so you can also control them, and you control how their power works. So, and he uses an example. Say if I summoned someone, and they had a water power, you can control you can control that person and the way how their water works. And Deku he finally gets to the whole gist of the gist of the whole thing. And basically yada yada, let's skip it around. So I'd say about about 4 years pass because how the time ship is going. And he learns how to use his quirk a little bit more. And in learning, he basically was basically it was known that he know he basically knows how to use the quirk a lot more. He doesn't get two yet, but he still gets a good amount. And I'd say he has something in the works of and Anubis allowed this. Uh, basically a being of many. He basically has like a gem. Let's say a gem in the whole the rest things and shit. And he has a basically a philosopher's stone like thing, but it's from souls he's actually talked to that allows him. I'd say the souls have one ice, one fire, basically every one of every element, and can totally control that element. So basically, they allow him to use the element without summoning them, and basically that's how that one goes. And basically, he gets to basically he was told that he's to basically be a transfer student at a school called he what's it UA. I don't even know what the hell the whole school is called. All I know is that it's called UA. I don't know if it stands for um I don't know, but it's said to be the top hero school in Japan. And Deku's like, okay, how did I even get there? And he says, and his mother said, I think your dad pulled a few strings. And basically in his head, Deku hears yeah, I kind of pulled a few strings. So yeah, he goes there, and yes, he's in class 1A. Now, give me a second, because I gotta look something up. Damn, I went to the whole old video and only seen one fucking thing. But yeah, um, let's say yeah, he gets into 1A, and he bypassed the exam and all that, and he's getting to know everyone. And in getting to know everyone, he basically comes into the class the basically not the Egyptian clothes, but kind of something like it, because under his shirt he has the black garb and the black neck thing, and on his wrist he says the gold basically with the amulets. I mean all the wrist things. He has he has the gold thing around his neck. I don't even know how the hell they put those on. I bet you it's like a collar thing, or they put them on as they're young and it just expands when they grow. But yeah, basically basic shit like that. And he's getting to learn the class, and basically the first day comes. I mean, the day comes where it's like, okay, now it's time for, the testing, and basically everyone walks outside, and it's like, okay, now do this as much as you can. So I'm gonna just read off the results fast because I'm not trying to stay here all day. I mean, all morning. So basically, ball throw. Uraka gets first with Deku getting second because he uses wind. to push it, and then with the actually, yeah, that's how it happens. Use wind to push it further than it would have been, but he has a limit, so he stops it after a while, and it lands in the ocean, obviously, and it keeps going until it reaches like basically like the bottom of that ocean, which it would say like it wouldn't read infinity, it will read question mark question mark question mark, and basically they Aizawa would just say okay, so we're just gonna say he tied with Ochaka. And Bakugo would, basically be like, "What? How did he?" And then he was like, "Well, I think he put it in the ocean." And whole class like, "Well, how do you know that?" He turns the phone around and it says infinity. I mean, it says question mark question mark question mark. And they're like, "So what the fuck does that mean?" That means there's a limit, but they don't. But it's unknown where that limit is. And everyone's like, "Oh, okay, we get it." I'm gonna just imagine someone with a deep water diving quirk. You know how scary that have to be as soon as you reach like the no light zone? You can't see shit. You can only feel shit. So just imagine like the smallest fucking touch, you're freaking the fuck out. But what else will happen? Nothing much. Like, that whole thing will happen. And Deku would be okay in the rest of the categories. In the running one, he'd get above average, but that's just because after walking around in sand and running in sand and shit like that, you have naturally stronger legs, obviously. Um, what is it called? The grip one, a little bit above average, but not much. Like it's about two over average. Like side to side, little above average. Everything else besides like the main thing, the ball throw was above average. So, hmm, yeah, everything was like legit above average besides like the ball throw because he was able to use his wind there. And yeah, that pretty much was that. And then here comes like basically after that first day, he goes back to the locker room. Takes like you know like the whole interaction happens because he's cleaning back to his school clothes, and everyone realizes the Egyptian stuff on him. They're like, "Hey, what the hell is that?" He says, "Oh, I'm from Egypt, actually. I'm from," and he says where, and this is what I've been wearing since I was a kid. And everyone finds that cool, and everyone sees like how his body structure is, which is pretty deep, which is actually pretty. He's built, but he's not like muscle built, and basically everyone's like, okay, so he's from Egypt, and that everything's happening, everything's going on. The talking happened. Then he walks back to class, and shit happens. Then I'm gonna say a week passes, or how long it is, and the fucking was it heroes versus villain? Yeah, heroes versus villains thing happened. Now on that day, he will. Matter of fact, no. I'd say like no. This is before that would happen. I'd say he'd head home, and as soon as he get in, because he lives by himself, his dad would basically pop out of the woodworks, be watching TV with his feet kicked up on the small coffee table. He'd be like, "Yo, uh, yeah, I want to talk for a bit." And Deku's like, "All right, we can kick it then." And basically, they're talking, and his father's like, "Yeah, about that. I like the idea of how you're using it instead of like summoning the people. You just ask them like, hey, you want to help me and be a part of my everyday life?' And they just basically agree. So how about this? I'm gonna give you a second one of those, full of people whose quirks aren't element based, but have basically meniscus things, miscellaneous things, such as like a bouncing quirk. I mean, a bouncing. Someone had a bouncing power, Um, kind of like think of it like an how do you say how would that be explained? A bouncing, basically a bouncing power, basically a flying one, and I'd say uh basically things that help you around everyday life. Besides that, so bouncing, flying, uh, being able to breathe underwater, and shit like that, shit like that, shit like that. Bang, bang. Anyway, sorry, I had to do a URL thing. Uh, basically basic shit like that. And Deku was like, okay, and that Gem is putting into his second wrist thing. I don't know what to call them. They're not wrist guards, but you know that's put in. And now Deku's cooking with business. Oh, he practiced the quirks. You know, he used fire and then water, earth, uh, fire. I had to earth, wind, and fire. Hmm. Nothing else happened. He would, training the quirk. Like he wouldn't even train them. He'd test them out, like the bouncing quirk. I'd say he's able to bounce side to side. Like think of it as like a ricocheting. Like he gets blown back and he bounce off the wall, bounce off another wall, until he decides to stop. And and with the flying quirk, he didn't sprout a thing of wings, but he starts floating. I should have been more specific. His dad said I should have been more specific. I meant floating. Sorry. And he's like, no. Deku's like, oh, this is fine actually. And then he uses the wind to propel himself like directions he want to go. What else happened? Oh yeah, and then the next thing will happen. Hmm. What else did I say? Yeah, flying, yada yada. Basic shit to get around. Water breathing. He can swim underwater. He basically grows gills and is not it doesn't hurt him. It's like, oh, okay, I got gills now. And yeah, so it's time for the heroes versus the villains. I felt like Led Zeppelin, but yeah, I'm gonna say that whole thing happens. Hmm. It's time for a fucking show. I think it's the first time I cursed in these what ifs today too. But hmm. Anyway. Oh yeah, it was the Heroes vs Villains for the USJ. The fuck am I on? I thought I was higher than a bitch. I'm sitting here like, is the USJ before Heroes vs Villains? And then I was like, no, that makes no fucking sense. Why the hell would they fight villains just to do Heroes vs Villains? That makes no fucking sense. But yeah, the Heroes versus Villains thing will happen. Walking into school, same shit as usual. And he walks into class, it's the same shit as usual. Deku getting bitch slapped by Ida, but Deku ignores it, puts on his headphones, and he's just, he's chilling in his room. I mean, I said in the room, in his room, in the room, waiting for class to start. And basically, All Might crashes in. He was like, "All right, get your shit on. Let's go into the room. I mean, let's go outside." And they get to like the buildings, and he explains how it works. And he basically says, "All right, teams, Deku and Momo versus Todoroki and Bakugo, because I want to." And with Deku, and no, this is not a confirmed ship, so don't even worry about it. I don't know what ship this would fit with Deku because of this, but it definitely wouldn't be Momo. I mean, it could be, but I just don't want it to be. So Deku basically has his, Egypt clothes on, and he's basically talking to Momo, talking strategy. He's like, okay, so we know Bakugo has an explosion quirk, but he kind of is a hothead, so he'll probably be charging around the map. While Todoroki is more cool-minded and will probably stay an objective. So how about we formulate a plan? Do you know anything about? He says like, how about you sneak around while I deal with these two? I mean, deal with Bakugo. And she says, well, how am I supposed to beat Todoroki? That's where I come in. I will beat Bakugo and I'll meet you up there. So you go into a different entrance and, you know, you sneak your way up while I get rid of Bakugo. And, like, yeah, that. So, yeah, she goes into the back, he goes into the front. And just like you said, as soon as he gets to the third floor, Bakugo is basically like, him and Bakugo are trading, not even trading hands. Bakugo's like trying to hit him, but Deku's using wind to, like force him to like misuse his quirk and be like close but grazing him. And then when he hits Deku once and sending him almost into a wall, one of the gems activate and he's just like bouncing from side to side. And then with all that, energy, he comes back and punches Bakugo dead in the fucking face, sending him like sending Bakugo back a few steps, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he says, "Kamuga!" And with the like, basically shoots out a blue fireball or the Kamugi, and basically hits Bakugo, sending him into a wall. And then he's just like, "Okay, here we go," and hitting this man with the combo star combos. If you don't know what combo star is, if you never watched Seven Deadly Sins, Gary Area is underrated. What her move is. Think about it. Every time you land a punch, it becomes 2 times stronger than the next one. So he's fucking Bakugo up. And no, he does not have combo star. He's just like, giving him hands like he's a combo star. So he's hitting Bakugo in the chest and stomach. And Bakugo's losing breath. So he's like, why not? And uses, like, I think it was called grenade or something. And basically blows Deku back. And Deku basically goes out the building from the impact. And he uses, his whole like, float, and then he uses the air to send them back in. And he's basically like, him and Baka are still like, going at it. And Deku's basically luring Bakugo into a trap because he's using basically his quirks. And I'm gonna say, like, when he gets the chance, when he goes for another grenade, Deku basically uses the wind and kicks it up and sends it towards the ceiling, basically sending a whole like destroying the whole like top of the ceiling and going up into the bomb room. Deku's like, okay, that's where it is then. And then all that Bakugo sees after it does that is a hole full of water flowed down, and he's encased in ice up to the neck. And Deku's like, it's been fun, but yeah, I got a mission. I got a thing to win. So he basically jumps on Bakugo's head and shoots up into the bomb room, then lands on the opposite side of the crater, and him and Momo are there. And they're basically looking at Todoroki, and Todoroki basically like gives that cold expression. He's like, okay, so this is how it's gonna be, and then he freezes the floor. And Deku look at this and be like, oh, I get it. I see what's going on here. And he'd use fire and melt himself out. Then he used wind and float to basically like keep himself above everything. And basically he's thinking of what to do while Momo is basically stuck in. Uh, I They use those Momo. Okay, here's the thing, Momo. He obviously has ice and fire. So, how about you take the time to break out while I basically, fight him? And Momo's like, okay. And then Deku's basically like launching wind at him, basically pushing him back, pushing like pushing Todoroki back and into a wall, and keeping him there. But Todoroki sends ice and shit at Deku. Deku. Basically send him like, sending ice shards and shit at Deku, but the Deku uses wind basically like swiping it away. So basically, like he's giving Momo enough time to basically break out and touch the bomb, ending the exam. Hmm. And after the exam, they high five. Deku releases both Bakugo and Todoroki from what they're under. Bakugo, obviously being the hothead he would come up and try to hit Deku, but I mean he'd fly up and try to hit Deku because Deku did kind of use his head and said "Let's go" and bounce up like he was on the Super Mario Brothers. So Bakugo would try to hit him. Deku basically would enter the Matrix and start dodging the hell out of it. He's basically pulling the whole Painted Hinata fight. And then basically hits him with, yeah, I'm tired of this. Almighty push. And just with when blows him into a wall and then just like freezes him again to the wall. And he's like, okay, until you calm down, you aren't. And he's basically says, okay, you need to calm down there, buddy. And, he's basically like transporting Bakugo like that. To the point where they get back in the examination room and he unfreezes Bakugo. And before Bakugo could do anything, All Might basically like steps in and be like, yeah, no. And he says, Bakugo, you can't be fighting your classmates. He says, he stepped on my fucking head. And basically All Might says, yeah, but here's the thing. He stepped on your head to help him. So he helped him up. He bounced on your head. Like, I think he's pretty sure he played Super Mario 64. In basically, I said Todoroki. Bakugo will be kind of peeved at. I see. I wouldn't even say peeved. He's pissed the fuck off. He is nettled. And if you don't know where nettled came from, you just haven't watched Team 4 Star, haven't you? He is nettled. He's very fucking nettled. But yeah. So all that will happen, all that good shit, all that sweet shit, all that like the cocaine is here. But hmm, that will happen, and I think I'm gonna go into one more arc because I'm actually liking this. So after that day, basically everyone goes home. Deku gets a text from like another class because of the group chat. Then he gets a text from a few girls in UA. I can't tell you who, but a few. And he heads home basically. End of his day, his dad's here like, yo, let's kick it for a bit before I have to go back. And they're basically talking. Deku basically tells him what happened today in Anubis basically like, that makes sense. But why didn't you end the fight sooner? You could have just like, froze him in place. And basically Deku basically tells him like why I mean, I enjoy like sometimes you just wanna enjoy a fight instead of just winning it immediately. And his father says, but that's dangerous. And he says, yeah, but that's the thing. I knew he couldn't win because if he and but Deku explained it like fighting is like a game of chess if you're smart. If your opponent is angry, he's already losing all of his pieces, and he used that against Bakugo, and he's basically wearing down time. Basically, he basically explained like while he was doing that, his friend, like his teammate, was sneaking around. That's why he delayed the fight so much. Because because all Todoroki heard was boom, 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 and ice and wind and shit. He never heard Momo basically walking up the stairs or even coming in the room. He's seen her, but he ain't never hear her, and shit like that, shit like that, shit like that. Bang bang. But anyway, nah, I'm gonna just end it here because of the fact that I don't want to go into like an hour episode again. Plus, I still want to, relax for a bit. So I'm gonna end it here. It's been the longest one I've done in a long time. I remember I used to do like hour ones. Now it's like I can't sit through like a whole hour unless I get like a start storyboarding, which that I like, think I can do, but I don't, feel like storyboarding. So yeah, I had two videos today. I didn't expect the second one is a half an hour. The first one I was gonna do a half an hour, but I couldn't, for the hell of me, think of what the fuck who would go into 1A. I wanted to switch out people from 1A and 1B, but I couldn't think of who the hell to fucking switch. So I just end it like this. Thank you all for coming by. This is basically What If Deku was Anubis, the rework, and yeah.